So let's see. Okay, our wreath pattern is just going to, well, it's the wreath itself is basically here. If you've ever made a scarf before, this is exactly what you're doing. You're making a big scarf that's going to go around your wreath and be sewn into a tube. So basically, you need to be familiar with single crochet and color change. Now, you don't have to do a color change in this particular piece. If you don't want your wreath to have multiple colors, just go back and forth in rows with the same color until you reach enough length to sew those colors, those two ends together. So this is basically just a very personal pattern that you can customize for your whatever you would like it to look like. So if you want to do the color changes, that's great, and I'm going to show you how to do those. If you don't want to do the color changes, you're just going to single crochet back and forth in rows until you reach the length that you need in order to sew those two ends together. So let's just do the first couple of rows because it's quite self-explanatory once you have done your once you've learned or mastered a single crochet. This is a very basic pattern. So it says to chain 23, so we're going to chain 23. And there's 23. And now we need to single crochet into the second chain from the hook and the rest of the way across. So we're going to go, this is your hook, this is your first chain from the hook, this right here is your second chain from the hook. So we're going to go right in here and we're just going to single crochet across all the way back to where we were when we first started. So I'm going to do that, and because this is pretty much a basic back and forth pattern, I'm only going to show you this how to do a color change, because the rest of it is just a repeat of single crochet across, chain one, single crochet to the end, chain one, and go back. You're basically doing the same thing over and over for several rows. In the pattern, you'll see that it says to make 6 of those color change panels. Like, you have 4 colors that you're using, and you're going to do 5 rows of this, 3 rows of that, 8 rows of that, etc. And it says in the pattern that you need to make 6 of those repeats. In order for me to get the length that I needed, I actually had to make 7 of those repeats. Now, you might have a different tension than I do. You might have a thicker or thinner yarn than I do. And that is definitely going to affect how many of those sequences you have to do to get there. So if it takes you only 5 panels to do your entire width around your wreath, that's totally fine. If it takes you 8 or 9 because you've used a smaller weight yarn, totally fine too. You may also discover that doing 23 single crochets for your chain and then doing 22 total back and forth is not long enough to wrap around your wreath. So you might need to adjust how far you make, how long you make your original chain, because 22 single crochets might not be long enough. You might need to make it 28 or 30, something like that. So just when you get your chain made up, what you need to do is you need to grab your wreath, your little foam wreath, and wrap this piece around it to see if you're going to be able to sew those ends together to get them wrapped around. Okay, so this is kind of, this pattern is like a jumping off point for you to figure out like how to customize it to make it work for you. You might have bought a wreath that is not as wide in diameter as mine. So adjust it accordingly, but the actual pattern itself is basic back and forth single crochets. So now I've gotten to the end. I have one stitch left in this row, one single crochet left in this row, and this is where I would make a color change, which is right at the very end. In fact, I'm actually going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish this one out because it is on the chain and it does sometimes look a little bit different. So let me just, I'll continue with row 1 just to show. Okay, so last chain space, that's where I'm going to put my single crochet. My last single crochet is right there. Okay, now the pattern says to chain 1, so we chain up 1 and turn your work. Now you need to single crochet across 22, so your first available single crochet space is right in here. This is where you're going to put your first single crochet. Okay, and now you're going to go all the way across. Let me do that real quick. Alright, so we're getting to the end here, and this is where we're going to make a color change. When you have one single crochet left, when you have one spot left to go into your row there, this is where you will start your color change. So you go into the last single crochet with your working yarn that you have right now. Consider this your old color. You're going to yarn over and draw up a loop. Okay, so now you have 2 loops on your hook. This is where you're going to bring in your new yarn. You want to put your new yarn color into your working hand and then kind of grab onto your old color as well, so you have both of them in your hands. And it's super easy. You just yarn over with that new color and bring it up into that loop. Okay, so now you have your new color is on your loop now, or your hook, and now you can go ahead and tighten it down a little bit with your old yarn and kind of secure that in there. Now this is where we're going to lock it in. We're going to chain 1, because that's part of the pattern, is to chain up 1. We're going to turn, and now make sure that you have your yarn, your new working yarn, right here underneath, so that you can grab it while you're yarning under or yarning over to catch it. You want to have that new little tail available to secure it. See how you kind of just go over it like that, and then go back, pull on your old yarn, cinch it down, and continue locking that in for a few more stitches. I like to do about 4 or 5, just to make sure that it's, in there. So this is just basically carrying your yarn. You can carry yarn for several stripes if you'd like. Like if you're doing multiple stripes, back and forth, like light green, dark green, light green, dark green, you can just carry your yarn with you like this, with this little tail. But because we're doing sequences of thicker color changes, you can go ahead and when you're comfortable with whether or not it's locked in, you can just drop that tail and keep going down your row here to finish out your single crochet row. And then you're okay to go ahead and cut this old tail off right here with your old yarn. You can cut that off after you've secured in your new color. So basically, like I said before, this is a pretty simple single crochet back and forth with a color change. Color changes aren't that scary once you have, done them a couple of times. You might need to practice before you go ahead and set out on your finish or your main piece, and that's totally fine. So just get a swatch, going and practice your color changes, and it's really not that scary. So make sure that you're going all the way to the end. If you need to, use a stitch marker to mark your last stitches, or make sure you're counting in your head or out loud or however you need to count. You're always going to have 22 single crochets in each row. Okay? And you can see how this is going to line up nicely, and you're going to have a clean edge of just the one single crochet or one chain up. And there's a chain, turn, and then again, this is your first available single crochet space. So you go in there, and then you'll go another 21 all the way to the end. So that is how you're going to make this band that goes around your foam or metal, whatever kind of wreath you have available to use. So I'm going to come back with my finished band, and we'll go from there. All right, so I have my strip here, my long strip for the wreath. This is going to be folded in half, and we're going to sew this down through the middle. Now what you're going to notice is, obviously, if you have done color changes through the pattern, you don't have to do them. Like I had said before, you don't have to do the color changes. It's totally up to you. But you're going to notice that you do have a lot of strings that you're going to have to take care of. You're going to have to bring these in. So what I did was I just decided, okay, which side do I want to be on the inside that nobody's going to see, and which side do I want to be on the outside that everybody's going to see. So you just pick one side, and what you're going to do is you're going to want to just, because these aren't going to be used as a toy or anything like that, they're not going to come apart very easily. So just go ahead and bring your strings into the center of whatever piece you're in. Like I'll show you, for example, I'm just going to sew this in to this piece right here and kind of just weave it through a couple of different areas. There you've got lots of space and lots of stitches to weave it into. And so you're gonna just do that and make sure you pull so that it's not completely messed up, and then you're just gonna clip it. Now don't clip it all the way because you want to be able to make sure you're on the right side when you're, so you want to go ahead and leave it a little indicator of the inside of your piece. So just don't snip it all the way down so that you have a little tail there to look at. All right, here's another one. So yeah, just go ahead and pick your side that you're using. One side might look better to you than another. It's just your personal preference. And basically you just want to sew in all these multiple strings that you've used for your color change. It does take a while and it's kind of tedious, but that's what happens when you color change. So it's just part of the pattern. Can't really do nothing about it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish up bringing in all of my strings here into the center, and then I'll be back. All right, so I have now got my long wreath piece here. When you are done with your very last row, when you bind off, make sure you leave a long enough tail so that you can use that tail to sew your pieces, your two ends together. You want to have a long enough tail. So I think I got at least 18 inches tail here. And as you can see, I have all of my ends, my color change ends are pulled in to the inside of my piece. That was quite a bit of ends to go through because I did go ahead and do all of the color changes that were in the pattern. Okay, so now our next step is to take this piece and basically wrap it around our wreath and sew it together. I'm going to go ahead and go with, I think I'm going to go with this green color to sew my pieces together. It doesn't really matter what you use because in the end we're going to kind of slide this little tube to where the seam is behind the actual foam piece. Like, you know, this will be your outside and then the seam will be behind here. So it's going to be against your door or your wall, wherever you're going to be hanging your wreath. So we need to go ahead and make sure that our pieces are going to wrap around and be able to be sewn together. Now this is a little bit of a tight squeeze on mine. I did do the recommended 22 single crochets, and because when you're doing a project and if you don't continue with that project right when you start it, your tension can change. I had some things going on this week and my tension changed, and so parts of my tube piece are different. You know, they're a little bit wider, some are a little bit shorter, but basically it's a very forgiving kind of pattern. You can stretch it over, and this isn't going to be a huge gap for me to go ahead and sew through, so it'll be okay. But now say if it was, you know, if you had this much space left, then you might have to make sure that you definitely somehow put that all the way in the back of your project so that you couldn't see, and if you wanted to go ahead and sew it together that way. All right, so what I'm going to do first is, because I need to sew these two pieces together, this is gonna be a difficult, gonna have to try and adjust my camera, so bear with me while I do that so that I can go ahead and show you how to first sew together your two ends that you have made here. So let me adjust real quick. All right, go ahead and get your tapestry needle and thread your tail through from your very last row there that we left that long tail. Now you really don't actually have to have your foam piece right now. You just basically want to see that it was going to go ahead and be sewn together completely, and you would have space available. So what you want to do is I sew things wrong side, so we're gonna, or right side together. We're going to have our wrong side sticking out like this. This is our wrong side, because I want to keep that seam that we're going to get a seam in here. I want to keep that inside. So basically you're just going to do a whip stitch or a blanket stitch, whatever stitch you like to use to sew your pieces together. You can go in and out, or you can overlap your piece, but you're just going to utilize your top loops from your single crochets right here on each end to sew them together. So make sure you're going into the loops right in there. Or you're gonna, if you want to just go in and out, you can do that too. Go underneath them. I like to go over. So it's just personal preference on what stitch you like to use to sew them up. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of sew this together and then slide the foam piece in. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. I'm just going to sew this shut all the way, and I'll be right back. So now that you've got your pieces seamed together, your two ends, you're just going to flip it right side out. So now you're on your right side. Your right side is showing. And now what you're going to want to do is you just lay it down on your table or wherever you're at, and you're going to wrap it around this foam wreath right here. Okay, just like that. Now you want to get yourself your tapestry needle. Go ahead and get your tapestry needle again, and you're going to need a really long piece of yarn or thread, whatever it is that you have decided to use to sew your insides together. And because, like I said before, the seam is gonna be on the outside of it's gonna be hidden away, but you know, however you need to hold it to sew it together, that's fine. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're sewing your colors together in a way that lines up your rows. You want to make sure you're not sewing the green together with the yellow, or wrong colors. You just line up each section evenly, and you're gonna make sure you're gonna need quite a bit of string or yarn or whatever to close this up. Oh, there, I just went right through the hole there. So yeah, make sure you've got quite a bit of length there, and leave yourself a little bit of a tail like that. That's fine. You can knot that, tight in a knot if you want. I'll just sew it in later. And you're just going to go through your single crochet and your chain ones that were on the end of each row here, and you're going to cinch it up. Sorry. You're going to cinch it up and sew this tube completely closed around your foam piece. Just like that. Okay? So go ahead and go all the way around, sew all the way up, sew your piece all the way up, and then we'll move on to our pumpkins. So I have finished up sewing all of the pieces, all of the stripes together, all the way around. I left this, I tied it in a knot with the beginning piece there. So I'm not sure yet how I'm hanging this. I might leave this here just in case I want to hang it by yarn, but I'm not sure yet. So I will leave that there for now. And so now this whole wreath right here is finished, and you can see that it lines up really nicely. Kind of hard to get the whole thing in the shot here on my table. So now we move on to our pumpkins, and we're gonna go ahead and do those, and then we'll sew them in to in the inside of our wreath. So we're gonna want to move on to our pumpkins now. I've made up a couple of them so far. These two obviously are way different sizes, but it's the same exact pattern that the little one is. And what I've done is basically in the beginning of the pattern, you're told to crochet a certain amount of single crochets. And what I did was I went ahead and just added several more single crochets or chains into that row, and so I made it, bigger that way. So you can make your pumpkins all different sizes just based off of your starting chain, and then you will have to accommodate for your taller chain. You will have to make sure that the actual length of your single crochet single crochet and half double crochet strip is longer to obviously accommodate the taller portion of this pumpkin. So you'll see what I mean when we start doing the actual pumpkin piece. And then I made this little curly Q for a vine, and I will show you how to make that. And if you look at the pattern for this this little pumpkin, the one that I've linked in the Facebook page and all that, the link to the leaves does not exist anymore, and so I just made up a quick little leaf pattern, and we can go over that too in a minute. So you'll of course sew all these pieces on, and I'll show you how to do that too. So let's go ahead and we're going to make another pumpkin. For the pumpkin that I'm doing on screen, I thought it would be kind of cute to do one of those creamy off-white ones that looks so nice in the pumpkin patches. See how the difference. So you can obviously make yours, if you want. There's so many different colors of pumpkins if you think about it. There's the green speckled ones, light orange, dark orange, off-white, creamy colored pumpkins. Just make whatever colors you want to decorate your little wreath here. So this is a really straightforward pattern. You are going to be working in rows again, just like you did for your wreath. So there's not a lot of working in the round at all, actually, in this entire pattern. So to start your pumpkin, you need to chain 11. So 1, 2, 4, 10, and 11 right there, okay? And now we're going to follow the same method of working in the back loop only for the entire pattern. And to do that, I will show you. You can't really do it on this first row yet So we'll do that for the next. So row 1 is to single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So that's your hook, that's your first one, and this is your second. So single crochet in the second chain from hook, single crochet in the next, and then half double crochet in the next 6. So a half double crochet is yarn over, go through your top loop there, yarn over, and then pull through all 3. Yarn over, insert your hook, draw up a loop, pull through all 3. Yarn over, insert your hook, draw up a loop, pull through all 3. All right, there's 4, 5, and 6. And then we need to single crochet in the last 2. So 1 and 2. There we go. Now, this is where we're going to crochet in the back loops only for the rest of the pattern here. Okay, so we need to row 2 is chain, or actually, I'm sorry, at the end of each round, you're going to chain 1 and turn. So to work in the back loop only, I do mine slightly differently than you might see on other tutorials, only because for me it's just how my brain works. I can see the back loop better if I hold the piece sideways, and I just go into that one loop right there. Your back loop is when you have your project turned to face you. Your back loop is not this one right here. Get my needle. This is your front loop right there. And this is your back loop right there. Both of them together is just a single crochet, top portion of your single crochet. So you're going to want to go into this back loop only for the entire rest of the pattern. Okay? So however it is that you do that, if you want to do holding it this way and then you go in that direction, that's fine. But like I said, I hold mine a little bit differently. It's easier for me to see the loop that I'm going into. And so that's the way I'm going to proceed. I'm sorry, my finger is very distracting because of this red bandage. And it's sticking on my hook. Okay, so row 2 is to single crochet all the way across in the back loop. So we're doing 10 single crochets in the back loop only. We're doing a total of 10. There's 9 and 10. Okay? So that's 10 single crochet in the back loop. So you see right now, you have this little ridge, and that is because you've crocheted only in one of those loops. If you turn it over, you see it's almost like a dip. You could actually even fold it. So it's a little dip in the row. All right, so row 3s through 17 is a repeat of these 2 rows. So you're going to repeat a single crochet row and a combination row of 2 single crochets in the beginning, 6 half double crochets in the middle, and 2 single crochets at the end. So let me go ahead and do, I will do row 3 and 4, and then you go ahead and continue in that pattern until you get 17 complete rows. So we need to chain 1, and we're going to single crochet 1, 2, now 6 half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then our last two spaces are just going to be single crochets in the back loop. All right. Row 4 is chain 1 and go into the back loop only, single crochet all the way. So it's just this 2-row repeat. It works up real quick. You don't have to concentrate all that hard on this one. You just want to get 17 rows. Now, of course, you can make these bigger, smaller, whatever you want to suit your, personal preference. Pumpkins come in all shapes and sizes, so you can make them taller, shorter, whatever. Okay, I think that's 9. Hold on. Yep, that's 9. And then there's 10. Okay, so as you can see now, you're getting this look, this distinct ridged look in your rows because you're going only in the back loops only. And the reason that you're doing a half double crochet in the center is so that you can get that chubbiness, and then your single crochets are there to kind of close it in. As you can see, when you bend it, it kind of poofs out a little bit on your half double crochet rows. So this is going to create that circular, chunky little look to give you this effect of a round, chunky little pumpkin. Okay, so go ahead and complete now. Go ahead and do row 5 through 17 on your own, and I will come back and show you how to sew it all together. Now that you've got your 17 rows of your little pattern there, your repeat, go ahead and get yourself a nice long tail, because this tail is going to actually do several different things. So go ahead and get a nice long tail and pull that through. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to sew this into that little tube kind of thing. So just like you did with the wreath, you're going to use your loops that you have available from your chain end, your beginning chain, and then the single crochets. I'm sorry, this was your chain end, and then this was where you ended your last row in the pattern. So you're going to go ahead and sew these up together. This was my beginning chain tail, so I'll just weave that in later. So yeah, we're going to get this sewn up. we go. So now we have it all sewn up together like that. And I'm going to go ahead and turn mine inside out. It looks the same on both sides. Each, both sides are the same, but because I sewed that seam together, I want that on the inside. And then leave that one like that. All right, so now we need to close one end up. And to do that, we're going to basically just go kind of use your chain spaces right here. These areas on top, you can see them right there. We're just going to go in and out of those around the outer edge of this bottom row here, in and out. And as you can see, you can start cinching it up like a little pouch or something that you would sew shut. Just keep going in and out of those top loops there that you have available to use. Till you get to the beginning, then you pull it tight like that. So now you can it's a little bit open there, you can kind of just close that up with a couple stitches, just like that. Okay, so now that's closed at the bottom, and because I want to keep using this tail, what I'm going to go ahead and do is weave it on up, just kind of discreetly weave it through so that I can use it up here in a little bit. So you'll see why. We don't want to cut that tail off yet because we're going to use it again. Okay, so this is the part where you will use your polyfill stuffing, and I've lost mine. Here it is, all the way in the back. All right, you're just going to stuff this little pumpkin with your polyfill. Just like that. You can put more in or less, doesn't matter. And now we're going to do the same exact thing that we did on the bottom. We're going to do that again on the top. So that's why we've saved our tail there and hadn't cut it off. All right, so start weaving in and out through those spaces. These pumpkins work up super fast. You could have a whole pumpkin patch of these if you wanted to use them for, decorating your fireplace or wherever it is that you like to decorate your home. Start cinching it. All right. There we go. So now we've cinched that shut. We have our teeny little pumpkin here with the little ridges so that it looks pumpkin shaped. Now we can, this is where I started my whole chain thing here. I'm just going to tie this in a knot. There we go. And just weave this through real quick. Sorry, my iPad is making a bunch of noises while I'm trying to use it. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm pulling this tail, because see, we're still not done with this tail. Pulling it through to the bottom again. I want it to be at the bottom of the pumpkin. And I want it down there because I'm going to use this to sew it to the wreath. So utilize, your yarn whenever you can, so you're not just taking scraps here and there. Now this one I'm just gonna put in anywhere and then cut it off. There. Okay, that was just my beginning chain tail. All right, so there is our tiny little pumpkin. And now we need to make some stem and some leaves, and you can make a little vine if you'd like to. So let's go to the stem. The stem is just a magic ring with 4 single crochets in the magic ring. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then a single crochet and an increase, and you do that 3 times so that you have 6 all together. So second round, whoops, I ended up doing a slip stitch there. Second round is a single crochet and then 2 single crochets into the next, a single crochet, and then 2 single crochets into the next. All right, so you have 6 all together. Or you could just do a magic ring with 6 in the magic ring. That's fine too, whichever way is more comfortable for you. And then you're going to just make this stem as long as you would like. So I'm thinking I'm just going to add one more, maybe let's just do one more row of 6 on here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I think that's long enough for the stem. Let me just see. Yeah, I'm happy with that one. Okay, so I'll just cut my tail there, pull it through. Kind of wiggle my hook around in there, open it up a bit. And now I'm going to use that tail that I just cut off to basically sew this little stem stump to the pumpkin. Now usually I would sew my magic circle tail I would have sewn that in because it will eventually, you know, come undone if it's being used, but because this is just for decoration, I didn't feel the need to weave it in because it won't be wiggling around very much when it's just on a wreath. So use your single crochets that you have available to just find your spaces that you want to sew into for your little stump. These really don't have to be perfect, you know, because, you know, nothing in nature is really all that exact, except for snowflakes. Snowflakes are pretty amazing, right? Actually, maybe a lot of things in nature are more symmetrical than I'm thinking. But anyway, it's just a pumpkin stump, so we don't need to get crazy with, you know, trying to line everything up. You just want that little stump on there. And then we're going to, that looks good. You can just drag that little tail through a couple of times through your pumpkin, and then just snip off that tail. Okay, now our next step is going to be some leaves. So I'm going to use my green for that. And I just have some scrap yarn left over from when I was sewing my wreath together, so I'm just going to use that scrap yarn. Now this is just a fairly simple looking leaf. It's nothing special, but I think it's cute and it matches these little pumpkins very nicely. So what you want to do is you're going to chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and then we're going to single crochet in the first chain from the hook. So there's your hook. I'm sorry, the second chain from the hook. This is your first one, and we're going to go into the second one right here. So we're going to do a single crochet. Excuse me. And now we're going to do a half double crochet in the next, and another half double crochet. So you're doing 2 half double crochets into that one chain space. You're going to do another set. So 1, 2 half double crochets into that one. Okay. Now you're going to do 2 double crochet into this next chain space, and there's 2. You're going to do another 2 half double crochet into this next chain space. There's 2, and you're going to do one more time 2 double crochets into that chain space. Okay, now I want you to kind of stretch it out a little bit if you need to. There you go. Do 1 half double crochet into that last chain that you were just in, into that same chain space. Okay. Next, we're going to be going up the chain. We're going to be going up the opposite side of that chain because we flipped it over. We're going to do 2 half double crochet, 1, 2, and then another 2 double crochet, one more set, 2 double crochet, now 2 half double crochets, in that one, and then 1 single crochet right here in that last chain space. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. Just kind of wiggle it in there. And then we're going to take this very top space right here where we started, and you're going to slip a stitch into that. So slip stitch, just like that. Okay. And so it's kind of, you can see it's kind of curved. I think it looks kind of cute. And then go ahead and snip that tail. There we go. All right, you can weave in this tail right here. So that it doesn't come loose. Oops. Tail is shredding here. And it's like that because I pulled it through my wreath so many times when I was sewing my wreath together. But I don't like to waste yarn, so I use scrap yarn whenever I can for things like this. Little things like this. All right. There we go. Make sure you pull that little point back out. There we go. And now we want to take the tail and sew this leaf onto our pumpkin. Just anywhere you want, near the stem. Just attach it with your needle there. Wherever you think it looks the best. This one's a little bit big for this pumpkin, but I still think it's cute. Okay. So there's our leaf. Just weave that back in and out to secure it. And then you can cut your tail off. There we go. So now we have our little stem and we have our leaf, and we're going to do a curly Q with, I'm going to go ahead and use, I'm going to use the brown, because kind of like when you cut the stem off of, or when you cut a pumpkin off of the vine, it turns brown. So I'm going to make the curly Q out of brown yarn. This one is just if you've made a squid or an octopus before, these are just the basic tentacle kind of things. So you want to make a chain. You can make the chain as long as you want, as many chains. So I'm going to do like, there's 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. That looks good. I'm going to do 10. And then to make it curl, what you want to do is you put like 2 or 3 into each chain space so that it's going to curl up on itself because it doesn't have, it's bunching it up, kind of, so to speak. So I like to do half double crochets. I do 2 half double crochet into each chain space along. And you can use double crochet, single crochet, whatever, it's up to you. But basically what you're trying to do is make it curl up. So you put more than one of your stitches into that chain space. And I like to use half double crochets just because it, you know, gives it a higher, thicker piece. Then I'm going to do a slip at the end to kind of bring it up a little bit. And then I will just snip that off, pull that through. You can tie a knot with your beginning chain there. And then you kind of just pull it, stretch it out, mess with it so that it shapes the way that you want to. And now what I can do is I'm going to put it right here. So I'm actually going to utilize my both my tails here and just tie it in a knot into the stump of the right in here. So just do through there and then take my other tail. Where'd it go? There we go, right there. And then I'll just, let's see, it's over there, so I'll put that one down here. And now what I'll do is I'll tie a knot. There we go. So now my curly Q vine is secure onto that stump. And I'll just weave that through. And trim that off. And then that one I can just clip off too. All right. So there's your tiny pumpkin. And yours is going to be whatever color you want. So your little stem, your leaf. So make up as many of these as you want. Make sure that when you are making your pumpkins, you're going to go ahead and make sure that you're leaving your tail, because now I'm going to show you how to put these onto the wreath. All right, I made my little pumpkins here, and the stems and little leaves and stuff, and I thought I wanted to do something else. So I'm going to make some acorns. I'm just kind of gonna wing it, and y'all can follow along if you want to make some acorns. Let me clip that off real quick. So an acorn, you know, just we're gonna start with a magic ring, and we're gonna do 6 into this magic ring real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what I'm gonna do is, I think I'm gonna go up to 12. So I'm gonna double my single crochets. I'm gonna put 2 single crochet into each of those previous 6. And I'm just going over my magic ring tail here so that I don't have to weave it in later. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, that looks good for my thick, you know, like the diameter of the acorn. That looks good. So I'm just gonna do a couple of rows. I'll go ahead and count the rows that I do, and then I'll come back and tell you how many I've done, so you can pause your video and do that many amount of rows. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I just did 4 rows. I did 4 rows of 12 around to make the base of my little acorn. And so I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is leave a longish tail, because what we're going to do is weave this down to the bottom, because I want to use this tail to secure my, I'm not sure if I'm going to put it on a pumpkin, you know, basically I just want to be able to use this tail to secure it to my wreath at some point. So I'm just going to kind of pull it through the center there like that. So then we need to make our top, right? You can stuff this if you want. You know what I'm going to do? Actually, I have all of this scrap yarn from when I was doing my ends, and so I'm just going to fill it up with some of that scrap yarn. I always hang on to stuff like this on my desk, and then at the end of the day when I'm done filming, I'll just kind of clean up my desk space. And but yeah, scrap yarn is a really good way to use, you know, for stuffing. All right, so we're going to do a cap. Now we're going to do something a little bit different for the cap. I had this in mind, and you know how when you're crocheting in the round, you are supposed to make sure that your tail is inside, your magic ring tail is inside, because that's just the way, you know, this is the right side of your project. You can see that my single crochet V's are very obvious here. That's the right side. What we're going to do for the cap, because the cap is kind of bumpy, we're going to actually do it on the wrong side. So let's make a magic circle. 4, 5, 6, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to double my amount, so I'm going to do 12. So 2 into each of these previous 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now I have 12 single crochets in my magic circle. And now you see when you flip it over, you kind of have a different appearance, and we're going to use that to our advantage, because the way that an acorn kind of flips, the cap kind of goes over the top of your acorn. So we don't want to go too much bigger than what the actual width or diameter of our acorn is. So I'm going to actually do an increase to about, because my yarn, this yarn right here is thicker than my cap yarn. I'm going to go to 18, but you might only need to increase to 15 or 16. So we're just kind of winging it here. We're going to see what works best. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, so I have 18 single crochets right there. And I think this is going to be perfect size for my little cap. And sure enough, it is. See, it's like a little hat for my acorn. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm done with that. I'll go ahead and cut off my tail. And what I want to do is, I think what I'm going to do right now is pull this through to the, I always like to make a clean finish there. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and bring it through. Poke it up the top, up through the top. Go ahead and get rid of this tail here. And that's just going to be kind of like the little, I'm going to shorten it. There we go. That's just the little stem that it comes off of the tree, like that. Okay. So now I should, well actually what I should have done is I should have sewed it on first, but that's okay. I'm going to sew the cap on, just like that. I'm going to sew that on, and then I will start showing you how to assemble the pumpkins onto the wreath, and then these acorns too. I'm going to make a whole bunch of these acorns, so when I come back I'll have a few more. Alright, so I have made up a whole bunch of little decorations that are going to go inside of the wreath here. These are I made 4 acorns, so I'm kind of just going to place them in between the pumpkins and stuff like that. I also am going to play around with some leaves that I bought in the floral department, so I'm going to add those too. And then, so of course I've got my pumpkins, 2 little ones. Here's a green and white one that's kind of medium-ish, and then a larger one. So altogether we're going to have quite a bit of things inside of our wreath here. So I'm going to go ahead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the floral arrangements that I have already got, and then I'm going to start showing you how to sew your pumpkins onto your wreath. The good part about this is that you can put them anywhere you want. It's kind of just up to you how you want to decorate it. Sewing them on is pretty straightforward. You're just going to use your tail that you have left, and you're going to sew it on tight. You can use floral wire too if you're good at using floral wire. I'm not a wreath maker, so I don't I don't usually do stuff like that, so this is kind of new to me. That's why I'm just going to sew them on with the tails that I have left. So let me go ahead and get some flowers on the wreath, and then I'll come back and sew these on. Here is the finished wreath. I've gone ahead and hung it up on my door, and it is going to be fall for me, even if it is 100 degrees out like it is right now in North Carolina, so I don't really care. These are the little flowers that I added. I got these at the Dollar Tree, and just wanted to mention, be very careful with your wreath when you're moving it around and stuff like that. My son was helping me to hang it up, and it fell, and the styrofoam busted in 3 different places. So it is being held together by the little tube of crocheted single crochets. So yeah, just be careful with your wreath when you're hanging it up. There you go. All right, I can't wait to see everybody else's creations. Please post them when you are done.